As always, before we begin the video, I'd like to verbally thank my patrons, especially those donating $10 or more a month, such as CeeLo, Andrew Melnick, Wolf HD, Young Master Pig, Anatoly Volnov, Colin Gajic, Jano, Duncan Bristow, Cooper Sutton, and Fockhead. We've now reached $300 monthly on Patreon, which means that come around this time next month, I'll be able to upgrade my microphone setup to something much more professional. Thank you. So, we've hit 100k. Rather than look back on the same history I've been going over since I hit 200 subscribers, let's just talk about YouTube and some of my favorite creators on it. A lot of these people have inspired me in one way or the other, or have just kept me interested, distracted, entertained, or whatever since I started this channel, and now that I actually have enough pull to hopefully help them grow a little bit, it feels like a great way of thanking them for everything. Most of these channels are still bigger than me, some a little, some a lot, but hey, every bit helps, right? I'm very selective about who I subscribe to, because I actually do use the subscription tab when browsing content, so when I say that you should definitely subscribe to these channels, don't take it lightly. I know that this video has an admittedly dry subject, so I'd like to emphasize again that each of these channels can give you anything from 10 to 200 hours of entertainment. I'm not trying to shill for audience retention, but definitely stick around for this video, open up YouTube in another tab, and start subscribing to these guys. You've probably heard of some of these channels, but I guarantee that you'll find some new ones here. Seriously, I'm looking out for you with this video. First off, we're going to start strong with the man that, in my opinion, makes the best content on YouTube, Ross Scott of Accursed Farms. I started watching this guy somewhere around 7th grade, a little less than half of my life ago. His legendary series, Freeman's Mind, is easily the best machinima of all time. Fantastic scripts, fantastic production quality, fantastic voice acting, it's just the best.
Oh, this is perfect. Yeah, keep sweeping, Zapface. You've got a lot of work ahead of you. Oh, this makes my day. Next to seeing their heads on a stick, this is about the best thing I could have asked for. I'm gonna like this.
Probably about a year before Freeman's Mind 1 ended, he started work on a series called Ross's Game Dungeon, which I genuinely think had a lot to do with the way that I try and see the best in every game I play. He'll talk about great games a lot, sure, but he also talks about some real shovelware and still finds a way to have fun with it. This man recently made an hour and 17-minute video about the GUI of modern computers, and I was thinking, laughing, and just generally having a great time the whole way through. However, on top of all that entertainment, this guy is like a shining beacon of how to do YouTube the best way possible. I don't even want to say that he inspired me in that regard, because he has such a fantastic work ethic that I couldn't even compare to. He'll delay a video for a month if it's anything less than perfect. He'll work hours and hours and hours to perfect the script, the rendering, the audio mixing, the editing, everything. And this absolutely shows. Second only to Ahoy, this feels like the most polished content on YouTube. On top of that, he almost never even mentions that you can donate to him. He does fantastic monthly video chats with all his fans, and I've actually got a personal story with him that shows that this whole good guy YouTuber thing isn't just a front. About a year and a half ago, I was trying to find more music to use in my videos. Mind you, I was incredibly small, maybe 150 subscribers at this point. I heard this really great credits song at the end of a machinima Ross had directed back in 2008, Galaxy Gulp. I could have just used a YouTube downloader to get the song, but I was curious if A, I could get permission to use the song, and B, I could get the original uncompressed file from Ross. So I emailed him, and eventually he got back to me offering to dig through decade-old project files to find it. Of course, I told him not to bother and thanked him for his time. Here's the thing though, it took him like 2 months to respond to me, and that's incredible, simply because he actually took the time to respond to an email that was 2 months old. I'm not even at half of the subscribers that he was at the time I emailed him, and already I ignored a lot of the DMs if I'm being perfectly honest. This man, however, is so dedicated to his community that he's going through his inbox like a machine every now and then, and literally offering to do real work just because some random guy amongst hundreds asked about a decade-old video. That's massively inspiring to me. This man deserves the world. Quit watching this video and go subscribe to him. I recommend starting with Freeman's Mind, or part 1 of his Game Dungeon episode on Armed and Delirious. Links down below. Alright, sorry about that. I've been waiting for almost a decade to gush about Ross on a platform this large. Moving on, we've got a creator who helped to inspire some of the weirder aspects of this channel. RennsReviews. This guy just makes really funny comedy reviews that come from a place of real passion. They're just this great combination of wholesome, funny, and unique. I mean, he starts out every video with this.
What's up everybody, it's me, your favorite little boy in the whole wide world, Ren with 2 N's.
Well, I don't do this stuff in every video, but that sort of weird persona is definitely a part of the reason I show this weirdo mask whenever I do an IRL video. It's memorable, and that's a seriously important part of making content in such a crowded space as video game reviews or video game analyses. Anyways, he's most at home talking about Bungie, whether it's Destiny or Halo. I don't even play Destiny, but you can bet your ass I watch every video that this man does on the series, just because I'm so into his presentation. I mean, after being burned by a particular piece of DLC, he made this video called Destiny Still Makes Me Depressed-any. And when he decided that he was done with the game for now, he put this in his video.
This franchise has taken me on such a roller coaster of emotions over the years. It's just too much for my heart to bear. I don't think I can take it anymore. It's time for me to move on, to let bygones be bygones, to put my old chattering bones to rest and find some peace and tranquility. But for God's sake, don't let them cremate me. Make sure they don't put my body in the blast furnace.
This guy is just hilarious, and relatable if you grew up with the Halo games as I did. And for my final piece of evidence, I'll point to what I think is a good contender for the funniest video on YouTube. Reading your mean comments to a phone sex worker.
I could destroy
You can be like the god of war, like the Rad Brat. The god of war, you know that game that he's got going on?
Yeah.
You can be the god of video games.
I am. I think
You
I already...
are.
Yeah.
You're definitely the god of video games.
Thank you so much.
This guy is just hilarious and super creative, all without any filter. Next up, we've got something less funny, not that he doesn't get the occasional chuckle from me. Noah Caldwell-Gervais. If you're into channels like mine, then there's a good chance you've already heard of him. He's a freelance games media writer, and he's by far my favorite. His video reviews feel very much like proper, college-educated looks at game design. He looks at things from just about every perspective one can analyze a game from, and he packages it all up in some of the tightest scripts I've ever seen. His fantastic structure has him flowing from one point to the next absolutely seamlessly, and there hasn't been a single time that I didn't understand the point he was trying to make perfectly. This man was born to write essays, and his laid-back approach to video production gives you such a chilled, relaxed environment to just sit back, cruising down the road, listening to his fantastic takes. To start you out, I highly recommend Sad Max, a Max Payne trilogy retrospective. All of his videos are great, but this one will have you sold on his content in the first 3 minutes, I guarantee it. I don't really watch content from channels like this anymore. As much as I used to love writing on games, Game Maker's Toolkit, Aaron's Signal, and all of those sorts of channels, I don't want to accidentally steal their opinion should I ever decide to do a video on a game that they're covering, so I had to stop watching that sort of content. However, I'll occasionally watch a video by Noah if it's on a game or a series that I doubt I'll ever cover, and I'll end up kicking myself, because he packages his ideas so well that I feel like I'm an idiot for not wanting to talk about the games in the first place. The Max Payne trilogy is a perfect example of this. If you want incredibly well thought out, long-form video essays to listen to while you drive around, there's nobody in the world I'd recommend above Noah Caldwell-Gervais. Next up, we've got another channel that you've probably heard of, Super Bunnyhop. This guy's content is always incredibly interesting, and so regardless of the subject, if he puts up a video, I'm watching it. He's actually the person who inspired me to make videos on MGS 3 and 4 after doing 2 and 1 already, but analyses aren't really his bread and butter. Sure, he makes good ones, but if you ask me, he's at his best when he's using games as a medium to talk about other issues. This video where he discusses how strategy games have reflected the cultural footprint of global warming over the last 30 years is a fantastic example, or this episode where he talks about the challenge of creating game mechanics to simulate real life, as in The Sims. He's also got a really fun retro YouTube series where he tries to beat MGS3 without using tranquilizers, which, if you'll allow me to flex, inspired me to get my first ever Foxhound rank playthrough on a no-trank run. Anyways, this guy's perspective is practically the same as my own, but his interests within the world of gaming are a bit different, so he goes in directions that I would never even dream of, and always handles them smoothly. To start out, I recommend his most recent video at the time of writing, talking anthropology, creation myths, and religion with Ancestors, the Humankind Odyssey. 2ClicksPhilip is the only second channel that I love to death. I haven't played CSGO regularly for years, but I still watch 3ClicksPhilip videos just to admire his presentation, and 2ClicksPhilip is where that really gets to shine, seeing as he's just talking about whatever random topics he wants to. This guy is funny, relaxing, interesting, and genuinely great with tech and editing. He'll make videos about everything from learning to juggle to talking about upscaling his old family photos using AI. Somewhere between those two comes a great series on the Total War games, a really inspirational series called The Game Making Journey, and above even those, last year he absolutely poured his heart out into a series of machinima about his old Skyrim character, Oddgrub, and if it weren't for Freeman's Mind, this would easily be my favorite machinima. The production value, the comedy, the writing, the editing, it's all just absolutely masterful. He seriously worked hard on these, and they deserve all the love in the world. If you need any more evidence that you should be watching this guy, a few months ago he made a video directed at everybody who ever thought they looked like a badass while playing a VR game, and here's the thumbnail. Awesome stuff. Ars Technica is a channel that I can't really say much about. I don't know what they are or what they do or how long they've been doing it, but they've got a series called War Stories, where they interview developers of various landmark games from all eras, and talk about the trials and tribulations of game development. And for my money, they're the best interviews you'll ever hear from game developers. The whole series is great, and really any video would be a good starting point, but my personal favorite is probably the first entry in the series, How Gamers Killed Ultima Online's Virtual Ecology. SimpleFlips is sick. I don't really watch a lot of Nintendo content, so it's not really educated when I say this, but in my experience, he's got the best entertainment value of any Mario streamers. You'll just be watching him play these absolutely hilarious and genuinely impressive Mario 64 ROM hacks that his community makes for his hack contests, and the chat will constantly be saying funny stuff, and he'll constantly be saying funny stuff, and you'll occasionally see him pull off some crazy maneuver in a platforming game. I've had tons of channels like this over the years, but right now, Simp is the one who I watch whenever I'm going to bed, so I get a lot of my current sense of humor from this guy and his community.
2 spin jumps. Okay, seems easy enough. Balls.
Him and Joel of Vart Skeletor are really the only stream highlight channels that I watch regularly, and as some people might know, he hopes to someday experience me in VR. Shoutouts to SimpleFlips. You guys don't need me to tell you about Yahtzee Croshaw. He's been doing Zero Punctuation weekly since 2007, and he's only gotten better and better since he started. I can't even remember when I first started watching this series. It's basically been a staple of my entire conscious life. Basically, he seems to look at games from a similar angle as I do, but while focusing purely on the question of, is this a good game? Picture me if I was loads more clever, cynical, prolific, talented, and funny. On top of that, he's got some fantastic books you should check out, starting with We'll Save the Galaxy for Food. To start out with Zero Punctuation, though, I would recommend his recent review of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which cleverly turns into a review for Disco Elysium, a review that first showed me the game, which is now a contender for my all-time favorite. He's over 600 episodes in, and every single one of them is an absolute gem. Late Night Gaming is a channel that a lot of you probably haven't heard about, considering that I'm almost entirely a PC guy, and he's a channel that's almost completely dedicated to Halo, a series that, as some of you know, has a really special place in my heart. Some of his videos sort of alienate me, no pun intended, as I haven't had a chance to play anything newer than Halo Reach, but this guy really gets why Halo is so special. He was the main inspiration behind my video about why people should let their kids play games like Halo. Videos like Halo's Marines are beautiful, Halo's best levels and the magical memories they formed, Halo's maps and the stories they tell, and Halo's most famous fan-made campaign really strike that same nostalgic, wholesome, and I think really important chords that I tried to strike in my video on Halo. Even if you aren't actually a fan of Halo, I think that these videos will serve as a great reminder of why you got into video games in the first place. It's some of the most wholesome content on YouTube, and I'd highly recommend any of the videos I mentioned above as a starting point for his channel. I'd also like to take a moment, and really pay attention here, to show some love to a great channel that really inspired me around the end of last year, IKG Productions. This guy makes the longest, most thorough videos you'll ever see on games that don't get nearly enough attention on YouTube. I was first introduced to him with this fantastic video on Star Fox Assault, a criminally underappreciated game that I absolutely adored growing up. It's a great video like all of his others, but for me, my favorite segments in all of these videos is when he uses his college education and music to really make me appreciate a game whose soundtrack I had slept on before. I don't exactly remember how I first got in contact with this man, but eventually he had the slightest tease that he was planning to someday make a video about a series that I hold incredibly close to my heart, and one which was responsible for my first little bit of rep I ever got on this website. And so I got into contact with him, and he agreed to someday let me do a collaboration with the series on him. I was about a quarter of his size back then, just 500 subscribers or so. As cruel as it is though, his channel is still at 2,000 subs while the algorithm decided to throw me a couple of bones. Regardless of numbers though, I absolutely love this guy's content, and it'd definitely be an honor to do that collab with him one of these days. Make doubly sure to show this guy some love, because his channel is so criminally slept on for the amount of work and passion he puts into this content. This guy seriously deserves his lucky break. Go subscribe to him and then get in your car and listen to one of his videos. From there, we've got some more obvious stuff that I'm sure you've heard about, but I'd be crazy not to mention. Frederick Knutson's Down the Rabbit Hole is the most interesting series on YouTube, Ahoy is amazing and has always been a huge influence on the style I aspire to, the Jimquisition also inspired me in a lot of the ways I approach my channel, from the weird character to a new video every Monday morning. Nakey Jakey is called Nakey Jakey, and that's amazing. LGR is super chill and informative and perfect for your morning coffee, plus he lives in the same town as me. Lazy Purple makes the best TF2 content in the business if you ask me. Ralph the Movie Maker and Red Letter Media are both staples of any film buff's YouTube history, and for good reasons. Civvy11 sucks at blood, but he's still my favorite new YouTuber of the past couple of years. Summoning Salt is a must-watch for anyone who enjoys speedrunning content, JonTron is still good. Again, you guys are almost definitely familiar with all of those channels already, but I at least had to mention them. Past that, like I said, I don't really allow myself to watch channels like Aaron Signal, Game Maker's Toolkit, Joseph Anderson, or Writing on Games anymore, because I might accidentally steal an idea or two. But the little bit I have allowed myself to watch from these channels in the past 2 years has all been great. If you know me, you probably know these guys, but to grossly generalize, they tend to tackle things from a much more critical standpoint than I do. So while I unfortunately can't really watch these guys anymore, I definitely recommend you continue to watch them. This still feels lame. I know I can't really say much about these channels, but these guys are practically the paragons of my little corner of YouTube. Genuinely iconic to anyone who's into my kind of content. It just so happens that I can't really allow myself to watch them that much. However, to mention some of my favorites of what I have allowed myself to watch from them, Writing on Games has a fantastic pair of videos about the Hitman reboot's level design that really articulates what's so interesting about those levels in a fantastic way. Aaron Signal seems to be trying to make videos on just about every interesting and unique game out there, and they've been doing it for a very long time, so really just take your pick. Joseph Anderson tends to have long-form looks at the overall experience and primary loops of games. His videos on Fallout 4 and Super Mario Odyssey are particular favorites of mine, and Game Maker's Toolkit has a ton of awesome videos that seem to be primarily focused on educating people about the various frontiers of game design. The Rise of the Systemic Game is a particularly interesting video that really stood out to me when I was first starting to explore the community's take on this side of gaming. I really didn't think that there was this much content I loved on YouTube. I thought that I just had a few channels that I watched, but seeing as I'm about to hit the 17-minute mark, it's hard for me to ignore that there's a whole lot to love about this website, in spite of all the bullshit YouTubers have had to put up with over their careers. YouTube still stands firmly as a perfect example of what's so magical about the internet. Everyone has their niche, this thing that they really enjoy that nobody around them really gets, and the internet is there to show them that they aren't alone. That's why I found my success, and that's why all of the channels listed above have found theirs. These days, everybody is watching different shows, different creators, different movies, and listening to different music, and that's such a great change. No longer do you have to just pander to get a million views. You can just make content you really love, and people will come eventually. It might take a while, but that wait is so worth it when you realize that you are your audience. You can make exactly what you want to make, and eventually you'll meet some people who are happy you made it, and that's such a beautiful thing. This might seem like a strange video to you guys, celebrating my channel's success by celebrating other channels, but the point of this video goes beyond just trying to sell you guys on the same content I enjoy. Beyond celebrating channels, this video is about celebrating YouTube and the internet as a whole. Think about what we have here. We have a platform that has entertained me and my obscure interests, which are totally alien to my small backwoodsy town, for my entire life. There have been so many times over my life that I felt like nobody got me. I know I must sound like an edgy teenager, but it's how I felt my whole life. Nobody looked at games or art in the same way that I did, nobody wanted to get too philosophical or question things or any of that stuff. And I know that this isn't just me, everybody feels that way. But with the advent and normalization of the internet, suddenly I've got a community that feels the same way that I do about these things. And that community is now over 7 times the size of this town that I felt like never got me. Nobody is truly alone, and while this might sound funny out of context, the internet is the perfect way to showcase that. So, thank you internet, thank you YouTube, and thank you viewers. I don't want to sound like I'm taking this thing for granted, but you guys are perfect evidence of one incredibly important fact. Nobody is truly alone. Bye.